I'm Asha Lin, 26 graphic designer and adopted daughter of the Chang family. I was standing at the edge of the ballroom, barely inside the double doors, trying not to wrinkle the sleeves of my navy dress. It was my adoptive mom's 60th birthday gala tuxedos, silk gowns, imported orchids hanging from the chandeliers like they were grown just for her. Everyone was there. Everyone but me, apparently. Aunt Melody brushed past me without eye contact. She was carrying a wrapped box with gold foil and a tag that read, "To the Queen." My older brother Darren caught my eye from across the room. He offered a polite, non-committal smile and turned back to the circle of cousins around him. They were already clinking champagne flutes. I waited another second before approaching the sign-in table. 2 event staffers in black uniforms glanced up. "Hi," I said quietly. "I'm Asha. I'm on the list, I think, under Chung." The woman with the iPad scrolled without looking up. Her brow furrowed. "Sorry. What was the first name?" "Asha. A. S. Ch. A." More scrolling. She didn't even tilt the screen toward me. "Sorry. I don't see that name here." A second staffer, younger, checked the printed sheet on the table and tapped it lightly. "We do have a few +1s. Maybe you're someone's guest." "No," I replied, voice shaking slightly. "I'm her daughter." Both women glanced at each other. The older one hesitated. "It's just that direct family is already checked in. Maybe if you text someone inside, I didn't." I stepped aside. My hands were cold. I looked around the ballroom past the couples at the photo booth, past the cake shaped like a cherry blossom tree, past the little stage where Darren was now speaking into the mic, holding a flute of champagne. "Tonight is about the woman who raised us all," he was saying. "My mother, my mentor, my best friend. She's the reason I became a doctor, the reason any of us became anything." Polite laughter. A table clinked glasses. I couldn't move. I just stared at him, then at my mother in the front row, wiping a tear beneath her diamond-rimmed glasses. She didn't turn around. She hadn't even looked to see if I was there. If you've ever been through something like this, drop a comment or let me know where you're watching from. Hit like or subscribe if family drama ever made you feel invisible too. A waiter walked by and paused. He looked about 19. Nervous. His eyes flicked to the gift bag in my hand, the one I spent 2 weeks making, embroidered with "For Amma" in gold thread. "Ma'am," he said carefully. "Are you Asha Lin?" I blinked. "Yes. There's someone here who wants to speak to you. They asked me to find you." The room hadn't noticed me yet, but I followed the waiter anyway, past the velvet curtain behind the stage. My heels tapped on the marble. And then, "Miss Lin," said a man in a pressed black suit. "Sorry to interrupt." He stepped forward and clasped my hand with both of his. "I'm Mr. Ko, with the National Design Fellowship Board. We've been trying to reach you for days. Your acceptance speech, do you have it ready? They're about to announce you." I stared at him. "Your mother nominated you," he added. "She didn't tell you." And then he stepped through the curtain, onto the stage, and took the mic from my brother. "Ladies and gentlemen," Mr. Ko said into the mic. "Before we continue, there's one more guest of honor here tonight. Please welcome the recipient of this year's Rising Star in Visual Design, and the youngest ever to win the National Fellowship." He turned and gestured toward me. I stepped out from behind the curtain. The room fell quiet. Mouths hung open. The cousins stared. My aunt nearly dropped her champagne. My brother's expression faltered mid-smile. And my mother, she stood up. Slowly. Her eyes locked on mine like she'd forgotten something. Something important. The silence was the loudest thing I'd ever heard, and for the first time in my life, I saw their faces change. People clapped. hesitantly at first, like they weren't sure if they were supposed to, then faster, fuller, louder. I walked forward with the gift bag still clutched in my hands. The lights hit my face. For a second, I thought I might cry, but I didn't. I nodded, smiled, took the envelope Mr. Coe handed me. It had my name written on it in looping calligraphy. The applause swelled again. I didn't look for my mother. I didn't need to. I could feel her eyes, burning through me like I was a ghost she'd just realized was real. After the ceremony, I stepped off stage and disappeared before anyone could ask questions. I slipped through the side door, past the orchid wall and the dessert buffet where chocolate-covered spoons were melting in tall glasses. In the hallway outside the ballroom, I sat on a bench near the coat room. My hands were shaking, not from nerves, from recognition, or maybe resentment. I wasn't sure. A few minutes later, Darren came out. His tie was loosened, and he held a half-finished drink. He stood over me, then sat down slowly, like the space beside me wasn't familiar anymore. "So," he said. I didn't answer. "You didn't tell anyone," he asked. "You didn't ask," I replied. He sighed, looked down at his shoes. "You made us all look bad." "I didn't do anything." "Exactly," he said. "You just appeared, after vanishing for months. You could have told Mom. She's had my number since 2008. She's been trying. Asha, she didn't mean to forget to put me on the guest list." He rubbed the back of his neck. "Look, she nominated you. Isn't that proof she cares?" "No," I said, standing. "It's proof she knows how to use my story when it suits her." He didn't follow me as I walked away. He never did. Later that night, I went home and sat on the floor of my apartment, still in my navy dress. I didn't turn on the lights. The glow from the hallway was enough. I stared at the bag I had embroidered by hand. The words for Amma shimmered in gold thread. I never gave it to her. Not after what I saw on her Facebook page earlier that week. Not after the video. It was posted on my birthday. A grainy, looped clip from some reality show or prank channel, one of those trashy compilations with laugh tracks and cheap music. And over it, she had added a caption, "When the adoption wasn't just a phase." And the comments. "Oh my God, Auntie, you're savage. Is this about Asha LMAO? I remember when you said she was your trial child. I knew you were joking when you called her your starter daughter, haha. That one came from my cousin, Serena. The same Serena who borrowed my coat when she forgot hers on a trip to Osaka. Who used my resume template to get into the same internship I had in college." I never replied. I just saved the post. And every comment. And I didn't say a word. The truth is, I've always known I didn't belong. Not in the cruel way adopted kids sometimes joke about. I mean in the quiet way. The unspoken moments. The details. Darren had a baby album. Thick. Leather-bound. With silver-lined pages and pressed flowers inside. Serena had one too. Her mother showed it off every Lunar New Year. I had a manila folder. No baby photos. Just legal papers and printouts of emails between my birth mother and the agency. One blurry ultrasound. No name in the mother section. Just the words unknown. Korean national. I used to read it at night when I couldn't sleep, like I was trying to memorize the proof that I had existed before them, that I was real. When I was 9, I asked Mom why we never celebrated my gotcha day the way other adopted kids did. She smiled, patted my head. "We're not like other families. Asha, we don't need labels. You're just one of us." But I wasn't. Not really. I looked nothing like them. I spoke differently. I read too much. I didn't go to church. I refused to learn the family's mahjong traditions. I was the one who had to ask what an honor cord was at Darren's graduation. And then, During one Christmas years ago, I found it. An old voicemail. I wasn't supposed to hear it. Dad had saved it by accident. It was hidden on an old family iPad they forgot to factory reset. I clicked it without thinking, just trying to clear the red notification. And suddenly, I heard their voices. My mom, my dad, their lawyer. She'll never remember the orphanage. My mom was saying, she's too small. Just, please, I'm begging you. We can't send her back. Not after everything we said at church. Then silence. Then my dad, we shouldn't have told people she was ours. Lawyer, if you terminate, you'll face questions. It won't be quiet. My mother again. Then fine, we'll keep her. But she stays under our name. No special treatment, no extra money, no separate story. We raise her just like the others. No more of this. And I heard a door close. I never told anyone I found that voicemail, but I saved it. Years later, I thought maybe things would change. I got into RISD on a partial scholarship, moved out early, worked 4 jobs, paid for my own books. I thought if I just became someone worth keeping, someone valuable enough, they'd notice, that they'd claim me. But the only time I saw my name on their lips was when they needed a headline, when they wanted to show off. Our daughter's a designer. She won an award. She's got a piece in an art museum. But they never invited me to dinner, never called on holidays, never remembered my birthday. Except this year. This year, they remembered. Because they wanted content. 3 days after the gala, I received a group text from Mom. It was a link to a YouTube short. A heartfelt night with my family. The title read, the thumbnail showed Darren, my mom, and Serena, posing by the cake. No sign of me. In the caption, she wrote proud mom of doctors, designers, and everything in between. Even the strays become stars. The word strays was bolded. I didn't respond, but I opened my voice recorder. I had the file, the one from the iPad, the one where they begged not to send me back. I edited nothing. I didn't change their voices. I just added a black screen with white text. You want the real story? Here it is. And I posted it, right under her video. In the comments. It took 7 minutes before people started replying, and by hour 3, the audio had over 10,000 plays. I turned off my phone, and I slept. Really slept. For the first time in years. When I woke up the next morning, my phone had 46 missed calls and 3 voicemails. 2 from my mother, 1 from Serena. All of them sounded rushed, panicked, not angry yet, just confused, as if they couldn't believe I had the audacity to do exactly what they'd done to me for years. Serena's voicemail was the most theatrical. Hey, Asha. I don't know if you meant to post that. I think you should probably take it down. Mom's freaking out. I mean, it's not really fair to take stuff out of context, right? We were just joking. We always joke like that. You know how our family is. I didn't respond. Instead, I made coffee, sat by the window, and opened my laptop. The video just a single black screen, and that 20-year-old audio clip was climbing past 90,000 views. The comments were ruthless, and yet, calm. Most of them were from people like me, people who recognized the hush in my mother's voice, the cold transaction behind the words, "We'll keep her." Someone wrote, "This is the kind of silence adopted kids know by heart." Another, "She was a secret until she became a trophy, and no child should ever hear their parents call them a stray." The video was spreading fast not because it was scandalous, but because it was familiar, quietly, devastatingly familiar. By that evening, the family group chat lit up, first with denials, then with Bible verses, then with an awkward meme of Kermit the Frog sipping tea. Darren tried to take control. Darren, we need to talk like adults. You can't just drop nuclear bombs. Asha, me like posting my story as a meme, wasn't one Darren. That was a joke. Me. So was I. Apparently. No one replied after that. An hour later, Mom messaged me privately. Mom, why are you doing this? Mom, I nominated you. I gave you a platform. Mom, you're hurting me for attention. I stared at the screen for a long time. Then I typed, you hurt me, and called it love. I told the truth. That's not revenge. That's survival. And I blocked her. For the next 2 days, I didn't go online. I turned off notifications, ignored emails, muted the apps. Instead, I took long walks, ate when I remembered, journaled in the margins of old sketchbooks. I expected to feel guilt, regret, maybe even fear. But all I felt was something strange, quiet, and new. Like I had finally finished a conversation I was never allowed to start. I met my birth mother once. I was 19, a sophomore in college. The agency had emailed me out of nowhere, said they had a match, and offered a reunion. I flew to Seoul that winter, alone. Her name was Ji-hai. She worked in a nail salon in Incheon. She didn't speak much English, and I barely spoke Korean. But when I stepped into the cafe where we were supposed to meet, she stood up and started crying before I even sat down. She kept calling me doll daughter. Her hands never stopped shaking. I asked her why she gave me up. She said, through a translator, that she was 17, that she was hiding her pregnancy from her parents, that she gave birth alone, wrapped me in a hospital sheet, and left me at the agency door the next morning with her phone number tucked into my blanket. The agency never called her back. She waited for years. Every birthday, she said, she would go to the same church and light a candle. Not for forgiveness, just to make sure I still existed somewhere. I asked her if she wanted me to stay. She said no. She told me to live my life freely, to love whoever I wanted, to never let silence become my language. We hugged. Once. Gently. I haven't seen her since, but I kept the candle she gave me. A small, wax lotus in a box of silk. It sits on my shelf now, between 2 paintbrushes and the photo of me at age 7, standing at a school assembly while my siblings clap for each other. 3 days after the post, the backlash came, not from the public, but from the family. An email from Darren's law firm, thinly veiled, talking about defamation and digital privacy violations. He wrote, "We understand that family conflict can be emotional, but publicizing private conversations violates legal boundaries and risks irreparable damage. Please consider removing the video before we explore further action." I laughed. They hadn't once denied it was real. They were just angry it had been heard. I replied, "Let me know if you want me to post the full file. I have 7 minutes total." They never responded. A week later, a stranger messaged me on Instagram. Her profile had one photo, a sunset over a bridge, and her name was M. She wrote, "I don't know you, but I just wanted to say, thank you." My adoptive mom said something similar when I was 13. I thought I imagined it. Hearing your post made me feel sane again. And then, you're not alone. Not anymore. I cried when I read that. Not because it was kind, but because it was the first time anyone had said it without expectation, without blood, without performance. Just truth. 2 weeks after the post went viral, I received a letter. Not an email. A real letter. Padded envelope. No return address. Inside was a USB stick. And a single line handwritten on a card. "They never told me you heard it too." It was from Dad. The voice files on the USB were older than mine. Backup recordings. Conversations between him and the lawyer. Snippets of meetings with the adoption agency. fragments of guilt I never knew he'd kept. In one, he said, "I don't think she'll forgive us," and I wouldn't blame her. In another, we raised her like she was a borrowed book, carefully, but never like she belonged on our shelf. And finally, I loved her the way I was allowed to, which wasn't enough. I don't know why he sent it. I don't know what he wants. But I know this somewhere, buried under their denial and their noise. There was one voice that wavered, and I needed that. Not to heal everything, just to begin. I haven't taken the post down. I don't plan to. Because for once, the story isn't edited, cropped, laughed at. It's mine. And I know not everyone will understand. Some people will still say I was cruel, that I should have forgiven, that I should have stayed quiet. But to them, I say this: silence is not grace. Sometimes, it's just a prison made of politeness. And I spent too many years in that cell. 2 months passed. The video was no longer viral. The views slowed. The comments quieted. People moved on. But something in me stayed awake. I didn't go back to my family. I didn't unblock my mother. I didn't answer Darren's third attempt at a peace talk brunch. Instead, I moved apartments. Just 6 blocks away, still in the city, but this one had a rooftop. I liked the wind up there, the absence of voices. I brought the silk candle from Jihai with me, wrapped in a scarf. I burned it once. Just a little. Enough to smell the jasmine. My roommate was confused at first. "You don't talk about your family much," she said one night while we folded laundry in the living room. "But now half the internet thinks they know everything about them." I looked at her. "Do you think I was wrong to post it?" She shrugged. "I think it was yours to post." That felt like the closest thing to closure I'd heard. Work became my anchor. I stayed late at the design firm, took on projects no one wanted, branding for a startup that made compostable packaging, website revamp for a therapy collective, infographics for a nonprofit dealing with adoptee advocacy. I didn't mention my story. I didn't pitch it. But one of the managers had seen the video. "I recognized your voice," she said gently in a team meeting. "I just want you to know your work here speaks even louder." She didn't ask questions, and that meant more than any apology ever could. The second viral wave didn't come from me. It came from Serena. One evening, I got a text from an unknown number. No message, just a link. I clicked it. TikTok. Captioned, "What really happened with my adopted cousin, Asha. It's not what you think." She was sitting on her bed, hair curled, ring light glaring in her eyes. "Okay," she began with a dramatic sigh. "So I wasn't going to say anything, but Asha posted this thing about our family, and now I'm getting DMs from strangers calling me evil." So here's the truth. She told a long, winding story about how she and I were never close, about how I never joined family trips, about how I chose to be distant. Then she said it. She used to record us, like secretly. She always had her phone out. Honestly, we never knew what she was collecting. So when she posted that voicemail, it felt manipulative. The comments were mixed. Some people defended her. Others tore her apart. I didn't say a word, but I saved the video. Not out of spite, out of habit. The truth was, I did record things. Not always. Not obsessively. But I kept evidence. Little fragments. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I didn't trust myself to remember the past the way it really was. I was constantly told my version of things was too sensitive, too emotional, too much. So I kept proof. A voice memo from when I was 12, whispering into my pillow after Serena pushed me at church and everyone laughed. "It's okay," I said. "They said it's just how cousins play." A text thread from my 18th birthday. No one had messaged, not even Mom. I sent a single message to the family group chat. Today's my birthday. No reply. 2 weeks later, I was cropped out of the family Christmas card. I kept those things not because they were dramatic, but because they were quiet. And quiet pain always gets rewritten, unless you document it. I started getting letters from strangers, handwritten, sealed with care, some in childlike cursive, others in perfect block print. One was from a woman named Rosa in Texas. She wrote, "I adopted my daughter at 3 months old. She's 10 now. I saw your video and cried for 2 hours. Thank you for reminding me that she'll have her own story, not just the one we tell at dinner tables." Another was from a man named Brian in Vermont. "I'm 48. I found out I was adopted at 35. It nearly broke me. But your words, they felt like mine, like someone finally said it." I read each one slowly, folded them back into their envelopes, lined them up beside my window. I never knew how much a stranger's honesty could weigh so gently on your chest. Then, one Saturday morning, my phone rang, a number I hadn't saved. I let it ring, then it rang again, and again. Finally, I answered. Hello, silence. Then Asha. It was Dad. I didn't hang up. "I'm calling to say I heard it," he said. "The post, the audio. I listened to it again last night." He sounded tired, not rehearsed. "Your mother doesn't know I'm calling," he added. "Why are you?" I asked. "Because I wanted you to know. I remember that meeting, the one you posted, and I've hated myself for it ever since." I waited. No words came to mind. I thought we were doing what was best. We thought we could raise you like a second chance, but you were never a mistake. You were just too bright for a dim house. I didn't cry, but I swallowed hard. "I know you may never forgive us," he said, "but I hope you'll believe me when I say I see you now. Fully. Not as a project, or a phase, or a stray." Silence. Then that's all. I just needed to say it out loud. "Goodbye, Asha." And he hung up. I held the phone to my ear long after the line went dead. I didn't tell anyone about the call. Not my roommate, not my coworkers, not even my journal. But that night, I played the voicemail again, the old one, the one from the iPad, the voices that raised me, and I didn't flinch this time. Because now, I wasn't the child on the floor, pressing headphones against my ears in the dark. I was the adult with a voice, and they finally knew it. A few weeks later, I took the long way home, past a bookstore, a record shop, a community center with a bulletin board out front, and there it was, a flyer, Adoptee art night for those who've been silenced, erased, or rewritten. Open mic, all ages, all truths. I took a photo, then I walked inside. The host smiled, asked if I had anything to share. I nodded. I didn't bring a script. I just spoke. About a family that kept me in the shadows until the light found me first. About the sound of being kept instead of loved. And about what it means to reclaim your voice. Not with rage, but with clarity. The room was quiet. And then, one voice from the back said, "Thank you. I needed that." I smiled, and for once, I believed it. It was the day before Lunar New Year when the package arrived. No return address, just my name in cursive Asha Lynn and a postmark from Cupertino. The handwriting looked oddly familiar, like the Christmas cards I used to see stacked on the Chang family kitchen table, back when I was still invited to sign my name on them. I stood at the counter, fingers hovering over the tape. Part of me wanted to toss it out unopened, but I didn't. I peeled the flap slowly, carefully, like I was afraid it would bite. Inside, there was no letter, just an album, leather-bound, soft blue, with golden embroidery along the edges, the kind of thing you'd find in a wedding registry or a baby shower gift. My initials were on the front, A.L., I opened the first page. There I was. Me. Maybe 3 or 4 years old, squinting at the sun in a faded lavender dress, holding a balloon shaped like a fish. I didn't remember the photo. I didn't remember the day. The next picture showed me standing beside Darren. He had his arm around me, a lopsided grin, missing a tooth. I was clutching a stuffed rabbit, looking unsure. It was the rabbit I'd lost when I was 6. The pictures kept going. Easter egg hunts, piano recitals, a blurry photo of me sleeping with my cheek pressed against a couch cushion while adults ate cake in the background. Always off to the side, always near the edges. But I was there, and someone had been watching. At the very back, tucked into a little sleeve pocket, was a folded sticky note. I unfolded it. It said, "I didn't know how to show you, but I kept everything. Love, Dad." I stood there for a long time. No tears, just stillness. Like my body needed time to process that not everything was missing, that someone, in some silent corner of that cold, curated house, had been collecting fragments of me. I placed the album on my bookshelf beside Jihai's candle. I didn't know what to make of it, but I didn't throw it away. Not this time. That night, my roommate asked if I was going home for the holiday. Home, I repeated. The word felt strange on my tongue. No, I'm staying here. She nodded. Want to come to mine? My mom makes dumplings from scratch. Very competitive folding. I smiled. That sounds real. It is loud, messy, completely unfiltered. You'll love it. I did go. And it was loud. Her grandmother tried to teach me how to fold jiaozi into perfect crescent moons, but mine looked more like swollen commas. Her dad played karaoke until midnight. Someone's toddler fell asleep under the table with a spring roll in his fist. No one asked me who I belonged to. They just handed me another plate. The next morning, I called Jihai. She picked up after 2 rings. I hadn't spoken to her in almost 2 years. I don't know what made me do it. Maybe it was the album, or the dumplings, or the way her candle had burned so evenly the night before, as if holding space for something I couldn't yet name. "Yoboseo," she said. "Hi. It's me, Asha." Pause. Then a sound, a soft breath through the receiver. Half disbelief, half relief. "Doll." Her voice cracked on the word. "I just wanted to say, Happy New Year." I said in Korean, awkward but clear. There was a long silence, then quiet sniffles, and then she spoke, her words halting but full of warmth. "I pray for you every morning, even when I don't know where you are." I swallowed. "I got your candle. It still smells like jasmine. I'll send you another one," she said quickly. A new one, with a wooden wick this time. Softer flame. We didn't talk long, but we didn't need to. The line held enough. Back at work, the nonprofit asked me to lead a campaign. Adoptee Visibility. A project aimed at reframing the narrative, not just the trauma, but the complexity. The truth, without the guilt. "Would you be willing to share your story?" the creative director asked. Maybe not as a victim, but as, I don't know, a witness? That word stayed with me. Witness. I wasn't a wound. I wasn't a redemption arc. I wasn't proof that adoption worked or that it failed. I was a witness to all of it. And maybe that was enough. We launched the project 3 months later. A web series, some short films, and a gallery of anonymous submissions voices layered with visuals. No names, just lived truths. I contributed a piece, a looping audio clip of the original voicemail, the one they left when I was 3, overlaid with childhood photos, the ones from the album, intercut with quotes from Jihai's letters. At the very end, white text appeared on a black screen. "I am not your secret. I am not your lesson. I am not your shame. I am simply still here. The reception was quiet, respectful. No fireworks, just messages from strangers. One girl wrote, "I finally wrote to my birth mom. I wasn't brave before. Now I am. Another thank you for not tying it all in a bow." I needed to see that healing isn't the same as forgetting. That felt truer than anything. One morning in June, I got an unexpected visitor. I was sketching on the rooftop, hair in a bun, feet bare on the concrete. The sun was soft, not yet harsh. The wind was gentle. I heard the elevator ding, then footsteps. I turned. It was Darren. He was holding 2 coffees. I didn't speak. I was in the neighborhood, he said, sheepish. I raised an eyebrow. I know, he admitted. You don't live near anything. I wanted to give you something. He held out one of the coffees. I took it. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small USB drive. What's that? I asked. It's the video, he said. From Mom's birthday. The whole speech. I cut it down. Took your name out. I tilted my head. Why? Because it wasn't hers to give. I didn't say thank you. But I didn't toss it either. He hesitated, then sat beside me. We drank quietly. After a while, he looked over. I used to envy you, he said. Not because you were different, but because you survived being different. I followed the rules. You made your own. I let that hang in the air. Then I said, you still know how to find me. That's something. He smiled. A little. And we stayed there. 2 people who were raised to be siblings but were now just people. Sitting. Starting from zero. That night, I lit the second candle Jihai had sent. The wooden wick made a soft crackle, like footsteps on snow. I sat in front of it, cross-legged, eyes closed. And for once, I didn't picture myself alone in the dark. I saw every face that had reached for me. Jihai, my roommate, Rosa from Texas, Darren, in his awkward coffee apology, even my father, in his one brave voicemail, and for the first time in years, I felt no need to document it, no need to prove it happened, because it lived in me now, not as a wound, not as proof, just presence, just light. The silence from my mother lasted until August. Then, in the middle of a thunderstorm, I got a letter. Not a text, not an email, an actual letter. Folded into thirds, no return address, no name. Just a careful script on the envelope, Asha. I almost didn't open it. I stood there for a long time, dripping in the hallway of my building. Rain still in my hair. The envelope felt strangely heavy in my hand, as if it had weight beyond the paper. I tore it open. Inside was a single page. There are things I said that I can't unsay, things I laughed at that I should have protected. I thought loving you meant shaping you into someone who could survive our world, but I didn't realize that meant you'd have to survive me, too. I don't expect forgiveness. I know now that I was cruel without knowing, cold without meaning. I called you my daughter when it was convenient, and something else when it wasn't. But I watched every milestone, even if I stayed quiet. I clipped your articles. I replayed your design award video 10 times. I show strangers your work and say, she's mine. I just never said it to you. I hope one day you can believe I felt love, even if it was warped by shame. Mom. No signature, no last name, no photos, just that letter, trembling in my hand like it was trying to apologize in silence. I read it twice. Then I put it back in the envelope, slid it into the drawer beside the photo album from my dad. I didn't know what to do with it, so I let it rest. A week later, I found myself sitting in a Korean Buddhist temple on the edge of town. It wasn't planned. I was on a shoot for a freelance campaign, just product shots of handcrafted candles, and the shopkeeper told me about the temple she donated to. "It's quiet," she said. "Good for thinking. And they have a donation box if you ever need to let go of something." Let go of something. That phrase stuck to me. I drove out the next morning. It was still early, the sun just lifting behind a veil of clouds. The temple was nestled into a wooded hill, wrapped in incense and wind chimes. No one asked questions when I entered. No one told me where to sit. I just followed the silence. I found the box in a side garden. Wooden. Small. A little plaque above it read, "Leave what no longer serves you. Speak it if you can. Whisper it if you must." I stood there for a long time. Then I pulled out a folded napkin from my pocket. I hadn't brought the letter, but I didn't need to. I wrote the word "almost" and slipped it into the box, because that's what her love had been. Almost. Almost warm. Almost safe. Almost enough. And I was done carrying the rest of it. By fall, the design campaign I had helped launch had grown beyond anything we expected. It was now a national exhibition, a traveling one, museum partnerships, panels, workshops, voices from all 50 states, from Korea, from Ethiopia, from Guatemala, from across every adoption narrative you could imagine. They asked me to speak again, not about pain, but about what comes after. "What would you tell your younger self?" one panelist asked, as we sat under museum lights and microphone wires. I thought for a moment. Then I said I'd tell her that she doesn't need to be chosen to exist, that she doesn't need applause to prove her worth, that even if no one claps, she's already whole. The audience was quiet, and someone in the back, a teenage girl, probably 15 or 16, started crying, not loudly, just enough for me to see her shoulders move. Afterward, she came up to me, didn't say anything at first, just hugged me, briefly, fiercely, then handed me a note she had scribbled on the back of the event flyer. I thought I was invisible. "You made me real." On my 27th birthday, I turned off my phone completely. No social media, no camera roll, no alerts. Just me. I made a cake. Badly. It leaned to one side. I didn't frost it. I ate it with a fork. Right from the pan. I played Ji-Hai's favorite CD, the one she'd given me in Seoul, with a handwritten list of tracks, traditional Korean strings, soft jazz, and one Billie Holiday song at the end. It felt like a small kind of sacred. No audience, no validation, just me, alive, and still here. That evening, I sat on the roof again. Same blanket, same chipped teacup, same sky, only darker. And I listened to the voicemail one last time, the original. I let it play without flinching, without tightening in my chest. I just let it happen. Then I deleted it, not out of spite, out of space, out of breath. Because I no longer needed to remind myself that I was hurt. I already knew. But now I also knew I had lived past it. A few days later, Serena posted another video. This time, she wasn't defending herself. She was quiet, sitting in her car, makeup free, the wind messing her hair. She said, "I've been thinking about what family means, and how much I let other people tell me who belonged and who didn't. I've been cruel, especially to someone who never asked for anything but the truth." She looked directly into the lens. "Asha, if you ever see this, I'm sorry. I didn't comment. I didn't message her, but I watched it all the way through." Then I closed the app and sat with the silence that followed. It didn't ache the way it used to. I started painting again. Not for clients, not for galleries, just for myself. Mostly rooftops, candles, half-remembered faces, sometimes a girl at a birthday party, standing just outside the frame, holding a balloon shaped like a fish, and in the corner of every canvas, I signed the same thing. Not my full name, just one word, Asha. In Sanskrit, it means hope. But for me, it just means I am still here. I don't know if I'll ever speak to my mother again. I don't know if healing means reconciling or just continuing. But I do know this. I am not a secret. I am not a joke. I am not someone's lesson. I am someone's beginning. And I belong to myself now. Wholly, quietly, completely. Winter came again. And with it, a softness I hadn't expected. Not forgiveness. Not reunion. Just space. I walked more. I bought myself a wool coat I couldn't afford when I was in school. I learned how to make ginger tea the way Jihai taught me that one afternoon in Incheon, simmering thin slices with honey until the steam tasted like memory. And I began sending postcards, real ones, to people I'd never met but somehow knew the girl from the museum panel, Rosa in Texas, Brian from Vermont. Each card said only one sentence: "You are not made of what they forgot." It felt better than retelling the pain. Around New Year's, Darren sent me an email, no subject line, just a link to a private folder titled "For Asha." Inside were dozens of home videos I had never seen. Old camcorder footage digitized, frame by frame. One clip from a school play I was in the background, playing a tree, swaying awkwardly. In another, I was sitting at a picnic table, trying to cut a hot dog with a plastic fork while everyone else posed for a group photo I wasn't in. The final video was dated July 3rd, 2002. I would have been 4. In the frame, the camera was shaky. I was sitting on the floor of the living room, building a house out of dominoes, while my mother off camera was humming softly. Then, something surprising happened. She said my name. Not girl, not her, not the youngest. She said, gently, "Asha, you're so focused." I looked up and smiled, not at her at the sound of my own name. The camera zoomed in, my hands placing the last domino. Then my mother said, in a voice I hadn't heard in years, softer than I remembered, "You're going to make something beautiful one day." The video cut out. I stared at the screen for a long time. That sentence wasn't enough to rewrite everything. But it was true. And truth doesn't erase the past. It just gives it contrast. I started writing letters I didn't send. To Jihai, to Mom, to my younger self. I kept them in a black box on my bookshelf, beneath the candle and the album and the wooden fish balloon I'd found in a vintage toy shop just weeks before. One letter read, "Dear Mom, you were both the door that closed and the frame I learned to walk around. I don't need you to say sorry, but I needed you to know I never stopped looking for a place where I was allowed to stay. Another dear me. The silence wasn't your fault. It didn't mean you were wrong. It meant the people around you didn't know how to speak your name without conditions. That's not love. That's control. And you escaped it without becoming bitter. I'm proud of you. I think we all need somewhere to place the words we couldn't say when it mattered, even if no one reads them, especially if no one reads them. I found a therapist. Her name was Maribel. She had soft hair and softer eyes. She asked me questions I hadn't thought to ask myself. What did you think love was supposed to feel like? Who taught you to apologize for existing? Where does your anger go when you smile instead? The first few sessions were jagged. I talked about adoption in past tense, like it was an event that ended. She corrected me gently. "It's not something you were," she said. "It's something you are, still, every day." I didn't like that at first. I wanted to be done, fixed, claimed. But she helped me see something I'd never said aloud. I wasn't broken because I was adopted. I was broken because the people who adopted me didn't know what to do with the story they inherited, and I carried that confusion like a backpack full of secrets. until I didn't. I started dating someone. Her name was Elise. We met at an art exhibit I'd worked on. She asked if I'd painted the piece of the little girl with the tilted cake and the fork in her hand. I said yes. She said, "It reminded me of the birthdays I faked being happy at." We laughed, and didn't stop. She had eyes like overcast mornings and a laugh that made people turn their heads in cafes. She never asked about my past like it was a crime scene. She listened like she'd already survived one night. As we lay on her couch watching a documentary about bees, she touched my wrist and said, "You're not hard to love." I didn't say anything. But I cried in the kitchen 20 minutes later, and she didn't ask why. She just stood behind me and rested her hand between my shoulder blades. I'd never felt so known without explanation. Months passed. Seasons turned. I got a call from the museum director. The traveling exhibit had reached Seoul. They wanted to know if I'd come speak at the opening. My first instinct was no. Too raw. Too far. Too many ghosts. But Jihai called me that same week. She said, "I saw the posters. I saw your name. Will you come?" And for the first time, I heard no hesitation in her voice, only pride. So I booked the flight. The night of the opening, I wore navy. Same color as the dress I wore at my mother's gala the night she forgot me at her own celebration. But this time, the fabric didn't feel tight. It felt chosen. Ji-hee stood in the back of the room, her hair in a bun, her lips painted in a soft coral. She didn't cry this time. She just stood there with her palms pressed together and nodded as I spoke. I told the crowd about memory, about being claimed by silence, about the cost of becoming visible in a family that only loved its reflection. And I ended with this: adoption isn't a fairy tale. It's a story with torn pages, missing chapters, and handwriting from too many authors. But I've learned that just because the beginning wasn't mine, doesn't mean the ending won't be. They clapped. Ji-hye clapped. And for the first time, I believed the applause, not because I needed it, but because I wasn't alone in the room. Later that night, we walked along the Han River. Ji-hye held my hand for the first time. Not tightly, just enough. We didn't speak for a long while. Then she whispered, "You were never too much. They were just too small." I nodded, and for once, I didn't feel like a secret. I felt like down. Spring found me softer, not in the fragile sense, but like something once sharp had finally been allowed to settle. I stopped flinching when people asked about my childhood. I stopped rehearsing answers to questions no one had earned. I learned how to let a conversation end without needing to explain myself into comfort. And when I looked in the mirror, I no longer saw someone missing pieces. I saw someone holding me. Elise and I moved in together. A small walk-up above a bakery that made fresh bread every morning. The hallway always smelled like sesame and flour. She painted our kitchen wall pale green and filled the window ledge with succulents that I kept forgetting to water. Every Saturday, we did groceries together. Nothing fancy, just mundane things. Spinach, oat milk, soy sauce, eggs. She'd always throw in a random item wasabi peas, elderflower syrup, a pomegranate, and call it our plot twist. She never asked for a version of me that was easier to understand. She just listened. And sometimes, in the quiet, when I curled against her back at night, I'd whisper, "Thank you for finding me in the noise." She never responded with words, just her fingers tightening around mine under the blanket. One day, while clearing out old boxes for the spring cleaning I kept putting off, I found the USB again, the one my father had sent. I hadn't played it since last year. I sat cross-legged on the floor, sun pouring through the open window, and I watched each file like they were scenes from a life I barely recognized but somehow lived. I saw him. Younger. Stiffer. Unsure. But in one video, something changed. He was sitting on a bench outside my middle school, camera tilted slightly. I must have been about 12, coming down the front steps alone with my backpack too big for my body. He didn't call to me. He just filmed quietly. I watched myself pause, adjust the strap, and glance behind me like I felt eyes. Then I walked away. In that moment, he whispered, barely audible, "She always walks like she's not sure she's allowed to be here." I paused the video. It was the first time I realized they saw it, too. The hesitance. The caution. The way I took up space like I might be punished for it. I sat with that for a while. Then I closed the folder, and finally deleted it. Not out of bitterness. Out of mercy. For both of us. I got a call from Darren again. This time, he didn't bring coffee. He asked if I wanted to come to Mom's retirement party. She said she wouldn't mind. He added quickly, like it might soften the blow. I laughed, gently. "That's very generous of her," I said. "You don't have to come. I just thought, you should be asked." "Thank you for the invitation," I said. "But I've been to her parties before." He didn't argue. We talked for a few more minutes. About his daughter, who was learning to read. About his job, which he didn't love anymore. About how he sometimes missed being a tree in a school play. "I think you were the better actor," he said before hanging up. I smiled after he did. Not because I believed it, but because we were both learning how to speak like people who shared a past without pretending we shared a present. That, in itself, was a kind of peace. My therapist asked me once what would healing look like. If it had a face, I thought about it for a while. "It wouldn't be a parent," I said, "or a lover, or even me as a child." She waited. "It would probably be a stranger," I said, sitting quietly across the table, not needing to know the story, just staying long enough to finish the tea. She smiled. "That's presence," she said, "not performance." And I realized for so long, I had lived as a performance, smiling at the table so I wouldn't be asked to leave it, editing myself so I wouldn't be edited out. But now, I stayed, just as I was, unrehearsed, unclipped. And the people who remained were the ones who deserved the full version. I wrote Jihai a letter, not for any occasion, just because I wanted to. I wrote Iyama. I still remember the candle, and the way you said my name without flinching. I don't know what the future looks like between us. I don't know if I'll ever live in Korea, or if I'll always be somewhere in between. But I know this. When you lit that candle every birthday, you weren't just wishing for me to exist. You were reminding the world that I already did. I see you. I hear you. And I carry you in the way I forgive gently. Love. Asha. She wrote back a month later. It was just a card, a pressed flower inside, and a single line. "My daughter. My flame. Come home whenever you're ready." I don't know if I'll ever attend another family reunion. I don't know if my mother will ever say the words I once begged to hear, not for the world, not for redemption, but for me. But I no longer need them, because I've said them to myself. Over and over. Until they stopped being apologies and became affirmations. Until they felt like facts. One night, Elise and I sat in the park, sharing a pint of mango sorbet straight from the container. A little girl ran past us, chasing her shadow in the dusk light. Her father called her name. Asha. We both turned. I blinked, and then I smiled. Because for once, it wasn't me. But it still made me feel whole. To know the name lived on, to know somewhere out there. A little girl might grow up never having to prove she was worth saying out loud. Later that night, I sat on the edge of the bed, feet dangling, listening to the sounds of our small apartment, the hum of the fridge, the wind brushing the window, Elise brushing her teeth in the other room, humming something off-key. I picked up my sketchbook, and I drew the rooftop, the candle, the little girl holding a balloon shaped like a fish, and behind her, a shadow not looming, but steady. It didn't speak. It didn't leave. It just stayed, witnessing. That was enough. That was everything.